To other matters now, gender-based violence cases are on the rise in Kaduna State with over 1,259 incidents reported by November 2024, marking a 30% increase from last year. Kano State also reported 244 cases in 2023, underscoring a growing regional concern. This troubling trend was discussed during a meeting of women Muslim preachers from Kano and Kaduna held as part of the 16 days of activism against GBV, organized by Development Research and Project Center and Bayero University Center for Islamic Civilization with Ford Foundation support. The event focused on using Islamic teachings to combat gender-based violence. Experts stressed the role of religious leaders in reshaping cultural norms and highlighted initiatives like a study tour to Al-Azhar in Egypt, aimed at equipping leaders to challenge harmful practices and promote women's rights through faith-based advocacy. To discuss this, we are joined by Titilola Vivour-Adeniyi, the Executive Secretary, Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency. Thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so you're the Executive Secretary, Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency. So let's bring the conversation to our domain first. What is the level of reported cases of GBV in Lagos State as we speak, and how does this reflect broader regional, maybe national trends?
Okay, so on average, we attend to between 300 to 350 cases monthly. These are cases that people come in to report officially, or we get via our toll-free line, or we get through our various social media platforms. And if you look at our trajectory, if you look at where we're coming from, in the past 2-3 years, we used to provide services to about 100 and 150 clients monthly. So we've seen, almost double of that number coming in formally. But we know we've not even scratched the surface because these issues, continue to remain some of the most underreported crimes, not just in Lagos, Nigeria, but globally. So yes, we can appreciate, the increase in reporting that is being recorded in these states that you mentioned, Kano and Kaduna, and I believe that it's attributable to different factors.
Yeah, so let's look at the factors, because if we're recording, a rise from 150 to 300 in a month in Southwest, and we're seeing more than 1,200 in the northern region, we need to understand what the causes are, because we know that there have been campaigns and advocacy against this. So why is it still increasing? What are the factors?
So these issues have always been there. What we're seeing is a combination of increase in formal and informal reporting, which can link it to heightened awareness. When you create awareness, you create advocacy about an issue, there's a likelihood that people will, try to access that service that you said you offer. So when we create awareness, when we do advocacy, we go to the communities, we do grassroots mobilization, we have seen that shortly after that, there is a spike in cases being reported. And so awareness is, creating awareness is one of the reasons. There's also, the use of social media. Social media is a useful tool in heightening awareness about an issue, and also giving a platform to people who would hitherto not have reported, to be able to send a DM or just make a post. And then people that see the post tag relevant organizations. There's also, I think, across the country, there's an increase in political will that is being demonstrated by the different states. During COVID, domestic violence, sexual violence was referred to as a shadow pandemic. And during that period, aside from the increase in cases coming through, there was a declaration of state of emergency by the Governors Forum and even by Mr. President at that time. And so since then, states have been encouraged to adopt relevant laws like the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law, set up similar structures as we have in Lagos State, response teams, all this is, is coming together.
Okay.
And these are some of the reasons why we're seeing increase, in formal and informal reporting. But let's not make any mistake about this. These issues have always been there. What we're seeing now is that we are gradually breaking the culture of silence.
Okay.
People are becoming more encouraged to speak up. There's increased faith in the system, hence, the reportage.
Okay, so that actually explains the underreporting that you mentioned earlier. So now we cannot take it away from the fact that there are cultural or religious norms, practices or dictates that actually support GBV. So how do we now begin to draw in religious leaders, societal, what do you call them now, CSOs and leaders of thoughts to begin to address these religious or cultural norms or backings that help people premise their acts upon when they commit this violence against, most especially the female gender?
Indeed. So we're all a product of our socialization, right? It's what we're brought up with, either culturally, what we saw, in the society, or what we're exposed to by virtue of our faith, our religion. So we know of a truth that religious institutions, religious leaders, community leaders play a pivotal role in preventing or encouraging the perpetration of gender-based violence. And we've seen it because sometimes religious leaders serve as first responders. They are in a position of authority. These are people that if their congregation, if they say, give an instruction to a member of their congregation, there's a very high likelihood that member will do as he or she has been told, And so we know that sometimes survivors approach religious leaders for guidance, for counsel, for advice, if they're experiencing, gender-based violence or particularly domestic violence. And typically, the usual response is, oh, the Bible says, the Quran says, wife submit and all of that. God hates divorce, mediate.
And forgive and forget.
What we're saying is that there comes a time where religious institutions, religious leaders must have interface with government or with other relevant organizations, such as non-governmental organizations that work in this thematic area. As a religious cleric, you can't keep mediating on the same couple every month. This person keeps reporting and she's coming with a black eye today, a broken leg tomorrow, and you keep mediating. You need to realize where your intervention stops and when you should have interface or referral to government or non-governmental organizations. And if I could just briefly speak about what we've been doing in Lagos State for the past 2-3 years, we've entered into a partnership with the Christian Association of Nigeria, as well as the Islamic associations, NASFAT and Ansarudin, where we're engaging because we cannot afford to be in denial. These cases are being reported at the religious institutions.
Okay.
The question is, what service are survivors receiving, upon reporting to their religious clerics? So we engage, and then what we did this year, we started off with pilots. We're building capacity of the religious leaders to be able to provide services and also make necessary referrals.
Okay, fantastic. We hope that, that can be sustained and replicated in other states. We need to bring down the numbers. Thank you so much. I'm Titilola Vivour-Adeniyi, the Executive Secretary, Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency. It was nice talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.